Hey guys, I'm coming at you with another tag video. I recently got tagged by the lovely Madison Green. I will link her down below. I'm doing this last minute, so I'm reading the questions on my phone. This is the Foodie book tag. It is an original tag created by Madison Green. Her questions all relate to some sort of fast food / restaurant. One of my favorite fast food restaurants is on this list, so I'll let you know when we get to it. Can you guess ahead of time? Maybe, maybe not. Question number 1 is McDonald's, a book that was easy to get through but wasn't that great. And I'm gonna go with The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. I believe it's Gillian, might be Gillian, we all know I can't pronounce names. The Grown Up. Read it in maybe an hour and a half, a couple years back after really liking. I'm one of those people that really loved Gone Girl but didn't care for sharp objects or dark places. I feel like once you've read one of her books, you've read the same character in every book. And The Grown Up was no different. It was very strange. It was about a woman that, like, I don't even remember because it was forgettable. A woman and a weird kid and weird shit happens. It was a novella that better left unread. Number 2 is Chick-fil-A, a book you flew through and really enjoyed. And for me, if you've watched any of my recent videos, you know that I really loved this book, and that is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. Read it in about a day and a half. It's a middle grade, so it's fast-paced. If you've ever wanted to read a cute little ghost story meant for middle school aged people, but you just needed like a fun little read, this is your Chick-fil-A book. Question number 3 is Zaxby's, which is a place that I've never been, I've never heard of. It must be a southern thing and not a northern thing. In any case, a book that cost a little more than you wanted to pay but was totally worth it. And recently, I read V.E. Schwab's, wait a second, I haven't read it. I bought V.E. Schwab's Vengeful. I have yet to read it. I paid full cover price for it. That is 28 buckaroos. I don't ever buy books full price, but what came with that was the event in which I got to meet Victoria Schwab. She signed all of the books of mine that I own of hers. It was one of the best nights of the year. I'll remember it forever. One of my goals in 2019 is to go to more author events and meet more of the people that have changed my life for the better. And if that means that I have to pay a little extra for a book here and there, so be it. This was an expensive book that was well worth it. Question number 4 is Red Lobster. What book have you read that's taken place by the ocean? I'm going with The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. I read this book, I want to say last year. I believe I read it while I was pregnant with my 3rd kid, so that would put it at last year. I love this book. Didn't know much about it going in, but it does take place in Alaska. One of the characters that you follow, because you follow 4 characters, actually lives on a fishing boat. There's a lot to do with fishing in the fishing boat and literally just living off the coast of Alaska. That is the ocean. Question number 5 is The Olive Garden, a book that gave you everything you wanted and more, because the Olive Garden gives you endless quantities of breadsticks and salad. If anyone saw the Jimmy Fallon and Post Malone little skit at Olive Garden, do you pay for anything there? That book for me is, I'm going with the graphic novel series, and that is East of West. If you haven't checked it out, the reason I said it's and more is because it's got sci-fi, it's got action, it's got the saucy sex scenes. It's great. It's like Saga in a way, but the reason it's and more for me is because it's a Western, and that's not my jam. But East of West was really good. If you like Saga and you're looking for something else that BookTube doesn't talk about a lot, East of West is the way to go. Question 6 is Cracker Barrel, a book that gives you comfort. I had a really hard time with this because you always want to go with Harry Potter because that's just, you know, what you do. And instead I just decided to go with one of my favorite Neil Gaiman books, and that's Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. This is the book that made me fall in love with Gaiman as a writer. I've read it multiple times. It always just feels nostalgic and good, and it's one of the reasons I decided to try and write the fantasy that I am currently writing for NaNoWriMo, and I owe him a lot because of that, so it's a book that brings me comfort. Question number 7 is Buffalo Wild Wings, a book that was a little hectic but was a lot of fun, and I'm going with a collection of short stories that are nonfiction called Furiously Happy, a book about terrible things that are funny or something like that. A funny book about terrible things by Jenny Lawson. Jenny Lawson was a blogger that has published 2 books. She's like on the likes of like Mindy Kaling, if you've read her books, or Kelly Oxford, Jim Gaffigan, any like comedian that writes personal essays. Jenny Lawson writes like that. The stories were funny. I like laughed out loud multiple times, but it also talks a lot about her mental illness. I believe, it's been a while since I've read it, but I believe she's got bipolar disorder or anxiety or OCD. She's got a bunch of different things that she discusses within it. So they're dark stories, but they're told with such sarcasm and honesty and brutality and humor. It's a great read. Her first book was also very funny, but I would say if personal essays tickle your fancy, that's a very, very good one. Question number 8 is my favorite restaurant among these, and I still eat it relatively regularly to this day, and that is Taco Bell. A book you know isn't that great, but you love it anyway, which is very apt for Taco Bell. And I chose A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. We all know the divide on this. Even if you loved the series, Court of Thorns and Roses, it didn't mean you loved this little lengthy novella that's a bridge between the end of the trilogy into what's going to be coming in the future. Not a whole lot happened. Some people really liked this because if you fall in love with the characters, you don't mind reading about the mundane shit they go through. I'm that kind of person. I enjoyed reading about all the mundane shit they go through. Some people thought it was just a money grab. I get that. I really do. I understand that it's trash, but it's trash that I love. Question number 9 is Waffle House. A book that was better than you expected. A book that was better than you expected. I'm going with Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin. I just read it recently. I picked it up on a whim because it was on a display in my library. I knew a few people who had read it. I read it for Contemporary-a-thon. Chelsea was one of the people I'd known had read it and loved it, and I believe both Julie and Natasha read it during that recent Contemporary-a-thon at the same time that I did, and I think we all pretty much liked it, but I loved it. I 5-starred it. I didn't think I'd want to read a book about politics and an affair within politics and how it affected a woman and not a man. I thought I would end up being super angry. I loved it. I loved the perspectives. I loved how it was a story told in like 5 parts, I want to say, all from different perspectives. It was great. Didn't expect it, didn't see it coming. Read it if you feel it. And the final question is the Cheesecake Factory, which is a restaurant I can still go to. So I like it. I like it. It's overpriced, but whatever. A book that served you something extra sweet. I actually really struggle with this because I don't read a lot of sweet novels. I don't read a whole lot of contemporary in the grand scheme of things. So I thought back to it, and I feel as though it didn't age well, but it's been almost a decade since I read it, and that is The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger? Niffenegger? Yeah. She used to teach at my old school, actually, but I think she taught in like the art department or something like that. Regardless, I loved that book when I read it. It was the first book that I'd read, I think, that did the format of past and present, and the timeline was all over the place, and I just adored it. I think I referenced it so much during the semester, like overkill, overkill. In any case, I didn't expect it to play out the way it played out, and it was sweet, and it was heartbreaking, and it was weird, and I know the controversy is like the love story and the timeline, and it gets a little age gappy, but that's my answer. That's it for the questions, guys. It was a fun little tag. I love the idea of the restaurants and the like tagline that we all think but don't say about each restaurant. If you're interested in doing this tag, feel free to do the tag. She tagged like 15 people, Madison did, so you might have been tagged already. If you're not and you think this is as clever as I do, feel free to do it. Please do it. If you like this video, go ahead and hit like, subscribe if you're new here and you want to see more content from me. Otherwise, guys, that's it for me. I will see you in the next one. Bye.